Hi, this is Professor Ridinger Dotterman. Welcome to the tutorial on outlining. We are talking about creating topic outlines, which are a specific kind of outline that you will be completing in this week's module. In general, you should think of outlining as a plan for your paper. It's sort of the skeleton around which the body of your paper is developed. It's very important to have this kind of structure in place so that you have some idea of how your paper is going to move from beginning to end. It's really important to do this when you're writing a larger research paper or a larger writing project like the one you're preparing for this course. While you can often get away with not outlining extensively or not outlining at all when you're writing very short assignment, when you're writing a longer paper, it's really important to have a plan in place so that you have a clear sense of how all of the parts are going to fit together and a progression from beginning to end that's going to give your reader a cohesive and complete explanation of your topic. Outlines can be very specific or detailed, and they may also be very general. You may be familiar with something called a sketch outline, which just kind of identifies keywords or topics that you're going to address. This week, I'm asking you to complete a more detailed kind of outline, and this is called a topic outline. Topic outlines, again, are detailed, and they are detailed in the sense that they actually include the claims that you're going to be making in each section of your paper, or they include the topic sentences. That's where it gets its name, topic outlines. They provide a sketch of the essay's arguments, and so very often you could look at somebody's topic outline that they prepared for a paper and then look at their paper, and you're going to see a lot of the same sentences or topic sentences that are included in the topic outline appearing in the paper that is ultimately written. Let's look at a sample section of a topic outline. When you look at this topic outline, you're going to notice a series of sentences, um, and they have a specific relationship to each other. So it begins with, and usually, although this is not necessary that you do it in your paper, usually topic outlines or all kinds of outlines have a progression. So they use Roman numerals, then they use capital letters, then they use Arabic numerals, and then they would use small letters. That would be the way that they are visually organized. So here we have Roman numeral 1. Sensory-based treatments for autism can be used to address a variety of sensory impairments. And we move from that to three related sentences. Capital A, deep pressure therapies may address a need for proprioceptive input. B, brushing may be used to desensitize a person to touch. Or C, feeding therapies may be used to address aversions to food textures like sticky foods. So what you notice about this is that it moves from a more general sentence or a more general topic to three related, more specific topics. And you notice that all of these topics appear in the form of sentences that make particular claims about the topic of sensory integration therapy or sensory treatments for autism. Outlining logic um, progresses from general to specific. So in the example I just showed you, we had a more general statement about sensory-based treatments, and we moved to more specific statements about different kinds of treatments. And you can imagine if that outline continued, then each section of that would include still more specific statements about the different therapies that were discussed. So there might be, for example, three even more specific sentences about different elements of brushing therapy, for instance. Um, each section of the outline includes related ideas. So in addition to moving from general to specific, there's a relationship or a logic between the specific items that are tied to the general items. So in that example, there was a general statement about sensory-based therapies, and it had a clear relationship with the more specific statements, which were specific kinds of sensory-based therapies for treating autism. The paper outline itself may be based on an argumentative model like the classical model or the Rogerian model or the problem solution models that you became familiar with in the Planning Longer Documents tutorial. They also may not, as we talked about in models. In that tutorial, models are a tool. They are not meant to enslave you. They are not meant to be something that you have to stick with exclusively. But you might find that you kind of put two and two together. So perhaps you'll take the classical model and you will take, say, the background section and you will formulate a topic outline that outlines the background section, and then you might use the topic outline to outline the arguments and claims section. So the two of them can work together. For instance, the example we had this week, the sample section uh, of sensory-based treatments, I can see that working in a couple of different ways. I can see in a particular paper that section functioning as a background section in a classical model paper, or I can see that paper functioning as an as the claims and evidence section of that paper, depending on that paper's particular focus. So that's how those things might work together. The last thing I want to stress to you then to that end is that outlines are tools. Outlines can help you plan a paper by helping you sketch out your argument. In other words, sometimes it's a lot easier to see where you're going if you have a plan and if you sit down and you think about what is it I'm going to talk about in this paper? What parts am I going to have? How are all of those parts going to relate to each other? Outlining is a really powerful way of doing that. It gives you some sense of where you're going to go and it helps you develop a roadmap. Outlining early in the process can also be really important to help you identify holes in your research. If you have some sense of the shape of the project and what it is you want to talk about, you might look and say, well, I see that I need to have a background section based on the outline that I've developed, but I notice I'm not really sure what to include in that section, and that's because I don't have enough. I haven't located my resources. I don't have the evidence that I'm going to need to include in my background section. So that can help you identify additional sources that you need to go out and locate. Outlines can also help in the decision-making process. Sometimes the problem isn't that you don't have enough research. The problem is that you have too much research and you can't figure out what you want to talk about and what you don't want to talk about. When you begin outlining, you're going to see the relationship between ideas. And sometimes you'll decide that even though an idea is really interesting and you found out some good information about it, it's not ultimately something that really works with the other ideas that you're going to include in your paper, and an outline can help make that apparent for you. So can it help you it can help you make ideas about what to or make decisions rather about what to cut or to include. The last thing that I want you to keep in mind is that outlines can change. Just like the models for developing longer documents, when I presented that tutorial to you, I told you that they were meant to help you, not enslave you. And the same thing is true for outlines. Sometimes we create an outline, and then as we get into the writing process, we discover that the outline doesn't work as effectively as we thought it would, or we wind up having more to say about something than we thought we would. And at that point, we decide that we're going to cut or we're going to change our outline, and that's absolutely fine. It's not a problem if your outline changes. In fact, I have yet to write a paper where my outline didn't change at least a little bit. Um, but it is important to at least begin the process with an outline in mind so that you have some sort of guideline or some sort of idea going into writing the paper.